Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the invitation to be here. And we send our best wishes, of course, to Minister Kathleen Lynch, who has responsibility for this area in government and does a fine job. And I know you all know her very well from her involvement in various other conferences and working with you. Thank you, Elaine, for telling us about the goals of the conference. And thank you, Jerry, and congratulations on your new appointment, and look forward very much to your ongoing work. I'm delighted to have been asked. I have a particular interest in mental health issues, not just because I'm Minister for Youth, for Children and Youth Affairs, but because my own background. I trained as a social worker originally and worked in mental health services for many years in Dublin and in inner city London. And I'm particularly interested in young people's mental health, but of course mental health generally. And I'm delighted to see the changed attitudes to mental health that I think we are experiencing in Ireland now. There is definitely a reduction in stigma, and I see this particularly amongst young people. I go around the country to youth conferences all the time, meet young people who are involved in Corlin and Nogue. So I have a huge amount of access to the kind of work that young people are doing, both in a voluntary and a professional capacity. And it's really striking to see how much work is being done on mental health by everyone, how much more open we are as a society than we used to be. But we still have a long way to go. There is a journey still in relation to stigma and an open discussion of mental health. I'm also an advocate for breast cancer services and the development of those services. And I often tell the story of when I was a young child of how a neighbour of my grandmother had breast cancer, and it was spoken about in a hushed voice. It was something you couldn't talk about. And, you know, that's the model that I think about in terms of the changes we need to make in mental health. The way that we now talk about breast cancer services, the awareness, the development of the various services, the mammograms, getting information out there, the focus on prevention. It's the very same with mental health. We just have to be as open and as refreshingly honest about mental health issues now as we are about asthma and diabetes and various forms of cancer. So there is a journey still to go on, because I think the one thing we have to really watch about when it comes to mental health is isolation. And as I was looking through the programme there, I saw a very nice phrase from Dara Doyle, where he said, "There is a fight online against the isolation of poor mental health." And I thought that's a marvellous phrase, because it isn't just a fight online, it's a fight in our society against the isolation if you have a mental health issue. And we can do so much for people if we break that isolation, if we get the information out there about the genesis, if you like, of mental health problems, how common they are, how every family is affected by mental health, how if you are bipolar, if you have schizophrenia or depression, or it's reactive depression or whatever type of depression it is, if you get the right help at the right time, you get the support. It is all about support, breaking that isolation, having someone to talk to. So I'm delighted to be here and very excited. This is a pioneering conference today. It's the first conference in Ireland, and we'll look back in 10 years' time and we'll be amazed that the first conference was just held in 2013, looking at the technology for well-being. And it's marvellous that you're reaching out and getting international best experience as well, to see how can we learn from other countries. And I want to welcome our Australian colleagues who are here today. Thank you for including Ireland. I know you're going on to, I think it's Brighton, to another very big conference on youth mental health. Delighted that you're here today to share your experience with us so that we can learn and develop, because you have had 15 years of experience in this area. And of course, young people now get so much of their information. I mean, the internet is the most common place that young adults from 17 to 25 will get information about mental health. So it's completely part of all our lives. It's not just changing young people's lives, it's changing lives of older people. I get regular panic attacks when I lose my iPad or my smartphone, or I think I've lost them. We feel like we've, lost our arm when we can't access our technology. And that's the reality of our world. And it is such a rich source of information and support and help. Too often when we talk about technology, and certainly in my area, we very often talk about the threats. But of course, it's the wonderful opportunities that digital media and online activity offer to all of us that we want to focus on here today, and particularly in relation to mental health. When I arrived and I spoke to Elaine, I asked her, what was the key issues that you were addressing here today? And she said, we're talking about how we can coordinate, work together. And I know I'm here officially to open the conference, but that you started last night, actually, and that you were sharing. And one of the things Elaine said to me is there was a bit of an eye-opener, just coming together and looking at how much is actually happening out there already online. And so many people are dealing with this topic and trying to do the very best. And she said, we've really got to work together, look at the quality issues, make sure we have the right information, we're reaching the right people. And it struck me that it's actually very similar to what I'm talking about, for example, in terms of child protection. When I talk about child protection and the services for children, one of the big topics, if we want to do the best for young children and young people in Ireland, one of the things we have to do is make absolutely sure that agencies work together. Interagency cooperation, intra-agency cooperation is a huge issue. I got a very disturbing report last year that looked at why 196 young people known to the services, not all in care by any means, but known to the services, young people at risk, they died, and we examined the story of their lives, which was an extremely sad research report for me to be getting. But one of the points I want to make to you was that in some of those children and some of their families, there were 14 agencies involved with them. So, and yet those children did not get, or some of them might not have been saved anyway, but the key point is that we do need to work together. And it's the very same online, I think, in terms of online facilities and access to help. How do you ensure quality? How do you work well together? How do you reach the audience that you want to reach? And what kind of information and help do you need to get to people? So those are the very exciting topics that you're discussing here this morning. And as I say, I'm very pleased that you are doing this. I think we can all learn from the outcomes today of your discussions and your suggestions. And no doubt, what you come up with, the recommendations you come up with here today, will be taken on board by government. They will be taken on board by Jerry and his team in the Suicide Prevention Office. That it's really important that we see what are the best recommendations that you come out with that can inform government policy. And we are very supportive at a government level of initiatives in relation to mental health. We need to be. We have serious issues in this country in relation to mental health. We have young people dying, we have older men at particular risk, we have disturbing statistics over the years. Perhaps beginning to see a little change, but early days yet. But we have work to do to save people's lives and to improve the quality of people's lives who are struggling and who can very often be so isolated. You do know that we have ring-fenced funding for mental health. We have started employing more mental health teams in the community. More recruitment is going on. That should make a difference. I don't underestimate the scale of the challenge, given the economic circumstances, given the increased pressures on families. It is a very tough time for individuals, with our unemployment rates bringing pressure on families and budgetary and financial restraints. And I'm very conscious that all of you are working in that environment. And I want to thank each and every one of you for the work that you do in mental health, because we have hugely dedicated professionals and volunteers who give of their time and their expertise to give the very best services that we can. But as I say, it is a demanding time. But focusing online technology, how we reach out, how we can help our young people and indeed older people is extremely important. I read with interest the study that you're discussing, and parents want help. It's very clear from that study that 22% of parents had actually looked for help online about mental health in the previous couple of months before they were interviewed. A high proportion of parents also said that they didn't feel they were equipped. This is a disturbing statistic. 25% of parents interviewed said that they didn't feel able to cope if their young person was having a trauma or a problem. So So that's quite disturbing, that a quarter of parents actually feel de-skilled in terms of helping their child cope with a problem. But equally, a very large percentage of parents said they would use online help and would go online to look for help. So there's huge potential there. There's no doubt about that. And the signposting is extremely important. So I will just conclude by saying thank you for all of the work you do again. The best of luck at this conference. I'm delighted to be here to officially launch the conference, and certainly as Minister for Children and Youth Affairs, I look forward to getting the recommendations from your deliberations and integrating them into the work that I do. I fund youth services in this country, my department, the taxpayer funds, to the tune of 55 million. I also want to make sure that all of those people working in youth services, in the more traditional youth services, get the benefit of your thinking as well, because they are in touch with some of the most vulnerable young people in this country in the work that they do. And the better informed our youth services, and I know there are some representatives here today from the youth sector, the better informed they are about the best use of technology when it comes to helping our young people, the more vulnerable young people we will reach. So for all of those reasons, I'm delighted to formally open the conference this morning. Thank you very much indeed.